Today we're going to be talking about VMware and some of the changes that we've had, quite major changes in the way the licensing models work for VMware, and then how Azure and Microsoft can help, right? And we're going to dive into that. But first of all, I'd like to start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today, which I think is quite a few different areas across the country, so we won't pick a particular nation. And I would like to pay my respects to those elders past and present. With that, I'll just remind everybody of the format. This discussion is recorded and we will send it out to you so you can share that with your peers and follow up with questions. And we'll send all the collateral out as well and a follow-up email. This is a discussion, so please ask questions. Right? You're more than welcome to interrupt and ask us questions as well. We'll keep a close eye on the chat if you don't want to speak out, but and we'll address them as we go. Yes, okay, so we'll send all the video content out. So let me introduce the people on the webinar today. I'll be hosting for you, and we've got Chris from the cubesys team, who's got many years of experience in VMware and managing data centers, etc. And we're very pleased to welcome Sean Jacob, who is an AVS specialist and global black belt. So welcome aboard, Sean. Maybe let's start by setting the scene and understanding what the changes are in licensing, and I'll ask Chris to walk us through that. So Chris, do you want to just tell us what's changing in the Broadcom purchase of VMware and where we're landing?
Yeah, so of course, obviously with Broadcom's acquisition of VMware, there is some significant changes. There's no longer that perpetual licensing model. So when we used to go down the process of owning ESXi licenses and vSphere licenses, that's no longer available to us at the time of our next renewal. We no longer have the capability to have perpetual licensing, and it has to move to a subscription model. So there's the VFF model and the VCF model. And there's a few things that kind of overlap between them, but ultimately what most people are looking for is that vSphere Enterprise Plus. And then unless you're a larger scale environment, obviously, and you're using more that NSX and HCX kind of enterprise level functionality. So those are the two main licenses available now for us. And obviously the EUC piece, the Horizon piece, obviously sold to KKR instead. So that the Broadcom is a whole other separate piece of licensing around specifically that piece. I believe that they're going to continue most of the licensing model that's currently available for Horizon. So, and VCF is kind of not necessarily suited for anything beyond that proof of concept type of restriction, right? So if you're going to go full enterprise, you want to make sure you're probably in the VCF piece, right? Sorry, rather than the VFF. So it's one of those things where Broadcom has typically done this in many places before, where they've taken over organizations and then they've changed the licensing model. So it's not necessarily unknown or unheard of for Broadcom to do so.
And you're saying, Chris, there's also some significant changes in the dollar value, right? So what we're going to end up paying is super important to understand. And I think you've got some examples if I jump to the next slide, right?
Yeah, that's right. I think it's to put it into perspective, just like this slide suggests, you've got to look at not the figures of just the first year, you've got to look at the figures over the life of your hardware now, right? So if you're looking at the life of hardware being at 5 years, at the very bottom, you can see a very drastic change in price. So your current pricing on a 2-socket server, which we all kind of typically remember with our Dells and HP physical servers, that 2 cores is you're only paying per socket rather than per core. So in year one, in a traditional licensing sense, it would be about $10,500. In the new VCF model, which is 90% of, or 90, even not higher, even 99% of customers are going to be moving to VCF. That same server is going to cost you $16,500 for that first year. And then as you can see, it just simply ramps up from there. So that total cost of ownership for just the licensing, not taking into account any hardware, obviously, over 5 years is quite a significant delta gap of nearly just over $6 million. So an incredibly significant jump and leap inside pricing. And we're hearing all kinds of horror stories from current VMware customers that are going through renewals who are saying, I'm seeing a 400 to 450% increase on their licensing costs because of this change. And obviously that's prompted today's discussion. And I think it's a very valuable discussion around how AVS can step in and help bridge the gap between what you're currently paying now and what the new pricing model would actually force you to do at some point in the next renewal.
And look, we're also seeing that impact people like, in education and not-for-profits where you would traditionally get discounts. A lot of those are being challenged as well. So you do need to check with your VMware provider what licensing provider what the situation is, right? So it can impacting people quite significantly on where we would normally expect to see discounts and things as well.
And we're definitely also seeing a long delay in getting those renewal quotes out. I've heard from a few customers just in these last few months saying that they're still waiting. They've been, ever since Broadcom took it over, they've been asking for renewal quotations that have been waiting a long time to come out. So it's taking time for processing as well.
So not a great situation, and definitely a big shift in the industry and what we're going to see going forward. But this is maybe a good time to introduce Sean. Do you want to maybe just give yourself a bit of background, Sean, on what your role is and what you do, and then we'll dive into how maybe Microsoft and the Azure platform can help address not just the dollars figures, but also the future path and your technology roadmap.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. Thanks, Chris. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining. As Paul mentioned, so I'm part of Microsoft. I'm part of the global black belt team here. I cover AVS and other migration workloads across Asia. But yeah, focusing mainly on Asia and some parts of Australia as well. But yeah, AVS is very front and center for us at Microsoft this year. Just going back to what Chris said previously in the previous slide about licensing quotes, it is a strategy from Broadcom where they are trying to give you the license renewal numbers of the new quote as late as possible. So essentially you have no choice and you have to sort of accept the new licensing pricing. But anyway, so what we're going to talk about today really is Microsoft's response, or not really response. We've had the service for about 4 years now. It's called Azure VMware Solution, which is essentially VMware in the cloud. And so I'll explain today what the service is, how it looks, give you a quick demo as well, and then we can take any questions and any use cases that you may have. But really, at the end of the day, what is, from a migration standpoint, VMware on cloud is something that's been around for a long time. We've had it, as I said, for 4 years, and there have been different reasons why customers move to the cloud in the first place and bring their VMware workloads to the cloud. So some of them on screen. I wouldn't be Microsoft if I didn't mention AI. So that's the first one there, right? So if you aren't interested in AI and you want the data on the cloud, then of course, that's one use case. But, just a slight joke, but kind of serious as well. But yeah, data center exits, where especially in Australia, those data center costs are expensive. Buying new hardware is a huge capital expense. So, that's a reason why you might be looking to move and do something with your existing hardware. You may have capacity challenges. You may have disaster recovery requirement. We've talked about the licensing changes. So, maybe potentially saving on licensing costs as well. So there are different reasons why customers will want to move to the cloud. And bring their VMware workloads to the cloud as well. So what is AVS? AVS is simply, as I said, VMware running on Azure. So just a very quick illustration is on the left-hand side, you have your on-prem data center. You might own this, or you might have a hoster provider or someone, but essentially at the end of the day, you've got VMware hosts, physical hardware running the ESXi VMware software, and you'll have components for storage and networking. Right, so that's your on-prem data center. AVS is exactly the same. So the software is as is. We don't touch it. We don't do anything with it. We simply get the software from VMware or Broadcom now, install it on physical hardware that's dedicated to you as a customer, and give that to you as a service in Azure. So this hardware is fully fit for purpose for VMware. It is yours if you deploy it. It's not multi-tenanted or shared with anyone else. It is full dedicated hardware running the VMware software that you love, running in Azure. And so that's essentially bottom line what AVS is. So from a physical hardware perspective, we've got various SKUs. In Australia, we've got the 3 here on screen. So we've got different models. If you look at the specs, you'll see some of them have more CPU, some of them have more memory, some of them have more storage. So depending on the requirements, some customers may choose one or the other. But again, depending on the SKU, there may be higher or lower costs as well associated, because this is dedicated hardware. You get all the hardware yourself. That is for you to consume as you wish. So how you start an AVS private cloud is you have a private cloud, and inside the private cloud, and previously it used to be called software-defined data center, inside that you can have multiple VMware clusters. Each cluster has to be a minimum of 3 nodes. So you start with 3, but as you can see, you can scale up to 96 nodes in a single private cloud instance. And that's a lot of compute, right? So this is all hyper-converged. So, if you have a minimum 3-node cluster, you deploy this AV36P SKU, that's 3 times 36, so 108 physical cores. You got about 2.1 terabytes of memory, about 60 terabytes of storage, and you scale up from there. So the more compute you need, the more nodes you add. That's as easy as that, right? So you keep adding compute as you need. Alongside the physical hardware, we give you the software. So this is where that, if you're in this licensing conversation at the moment where you're worried about the license pricing, it's something you haven't thought about before. We as Microsoft will give you the VMware licensing as part of the deployment. So you deploy AVS, you get the hardware plus the software given to you, and you don't have a separate, licensing agreement with Broadcom, nothing. It's all Microsoft. No one else you need to talk to. So yeah, hardware and software provided. We have also announced, and I'll touch on this a bit later, but there is a bring your own license option as well. So customers that have gone through the licensing renewal now, and perhaps you've done that yourself, and you've got maybe 1 more year to decide what you want to do. So if you have BCF, which is the license VMware are selling, they're pushing on all customers, which is that VMware Cloud Foundation license, the more expensive one. If you've got that license is portable. So you can bring those licenses into Azure onto AVS. And at that point, we'll just give you the hardware and you bring the software. But if you're a customer that has not gone through the renewal and you're worried about the prices, etc., we'll give you the hardware and the software. So both models are available. It just depends where you are on that journey. Now, AVS is like a part managed offering. So we, as Microsoft, look after the platform for all customers globally. So if you look at all the little boxes here, everything in blue, which looks, physical infrastructure, the security, hardware failures, physical hosts themselves, the lifecycle, host patching, vSphere upgrades, vCenter configuration, deployment, things like that. So everything you see here in blue is covered and looked after by Microsoft at a global level. And we do that for all customers everywhere. So when it comes from especially from a TCO perspective, I don't know how big your environments are, but, looking after these, even simple things, not simple, but mundane things like upgrading and patching and things like that, those things take a lot of time and effort. All that is, looked after by Microsoft. So in a way, it reduces your total labor spend if you are an AVS. And also that pain and headache of looking after this yourself. So everything in gray, which is just really the guest OS, the applications you have, the virtual machines you have, that remains in your responsibility, or partner like cubesys' responsibility if it's a managed service agreement. But yeah, all that is just yours. The gray bits at the bottom is just configuring things like policies and vCenter or networking subnets, things like that. So that's where you as a customer configure that. But from a deployment of those components or life cycle or looking after the entire platform itself, that is all done by Microsoft and covered as part of your Microsoft agreement as well. Now, why would you even consider AVS? So I'll spend a few minutes on this slide, and it's sort of taking you on this journey, right? So maybe the topic of conversation today was licensing, but as I said, a lot of customers have been on this journey onto cloud for a long time. So, for years and years and years, inception of cloud, we've been trying to sell Azure native services, which is going from on-premise, whatever your hypervisor is, go to an Azure native VM or go to a PaaS service like a SQL DB or a web app or, whatever services that the cloud has. We've been pitching that to customers to optimize and get, efficiencies, etc. Now, why would you even consider AVS? Is especially if you're in a time crunch, you have this license agreement or renewal coming around the corner. You've got end of life hardware that you have to make a decision on, CapEx spend. You need, burstability, scalability, whatever it may be. coming on from an on-prem VMware hypervisor into AVS, which is again a VMware hypervisor, nothing is changing at that level. So same hypervisor, whatever tools and processes and procedures that you have with VMware today will apply and work on AVS tomorrow. So nothing really changes. So the migration effort to go from on-prem VMware to AVS is very, very, very simple. And I'll show you a quick demo shortly how simple that is. But it's really like click, next, migrate. It's really that simple. So two big things that customers always request when they're moving to a public cloud or moving anywhere really is to have a very seamless migration. So moving from on-prem to AVS, you can even do a vMotion, which is, as I'm sure a lot of you know, on-premise vMotion from host to host. You can do a vMotion from on-prem to AVS. So very, very easy, like magic. It just goes from, it's here 1 second and it's on AVS the next second. The other thing customers can do is they can also stretch the networks and keep the same IP address. And so that's very important. There's been a lot of large customers that have had blockers with this, where if they move these legacy applications into cloud, the IP address will change, which might break the application, some old, monolithic, hard-coded application with IPs, etc. Maybe those things break. So keeping the same IP address has always been extremely important and probably blocked the migration in the past. But with AVS, you can stretch the networks from on-prem to AVS, and therefore keeping the same IP address is also possible. So it really reduces that friction. So if you were, what we normally say is AVS can be a stepping stone or the final destination. It really depends on your use case. Where I say stepping stone is you could bring your workloads into AVS, phase 1. Phase 2 is over the next 1, 2, 3, 5 years, you're looking to move into more native services or PaaS services. So you don't have to do big bangs at this point. So you can move, gradually into a native service, move gradually into a PaaS service as you please, modernize when you're ready. And the main benefit there is because it's the same region, potentially the same data center, latency between these services is very low. So you could have, 50% of the application sitting here. You can have another 30% sitting here, another 20% sitting here, and they all talk to each other through our Azure backbone in the data center, and it's super, super quick. So there's no impact from a performance perspective, latency, anything like that. So you can really move and pick and choose a service you want to land on. But here, I guess for us as Microsoft, we're here to offer that platform that gives you any option or any service, depending on your need. All right, so AVS is one. We even have other dedicated services like SkyTab for power systems. We have Nutanix on Azure coming. So there's a lot of services just here to use and consume. But yeah, for us, it depends what your use case is and what your requirements are, but we're happy to support you to any service. And now that includes AVS as well.
So Sean, you said AVS has been around for 3-4 years, and that's been the main driver for particularly large companies with that legacy tech or that speed to get to Azure and out of their own data centers, because we can use the same technology, like foundations, all our operational procedures are the same, our staff know what they're doing because they're in vCenter, all that sort of stuff. You're just hosting it somewhere else, and that's
exactly.
That's been valuable, right, for clients. And then, like you said, there could be a stepping stone into more native services as you go. But right now, when we've got this licensing things, it must be even more sort of attractive and powerful, right? And the fact that we can address and not have those handcuffs put on us by VMware, we've got an option, right? And
that's right, yeah. Yeah, there's two types of customers as well.
Bit as well, are we? Why that's good commercially, not just technically as well.
Absolutely, yeah. I'll show a TCO example shortly. But yeah, it's exactly to that point. So now, especially customers are, maybe you trust Broadcom and VMware is going to be around for the next 10 years, or maybe it's not. We don't know, right? So it's almost trying to see, if you have a platform that can give you an option. So today, why you'd want AVS potentially is everything stays the same, so nothing's changing, and your staff, your teams can just operate as they did before. It's a very easy transition. It doesn't, it's not going to impact skill levels or technical change. It's very small. But then, as you go along, the next 1, 2, 3 years, things are getting a bit messy. I'm not sure. There's a lot of change happening every single day from Broadcom. So, giving you the platform for that future safety net. And so giving you that, okay, AVS today, could be native VMs tomorrow, Kubernetes, PaaS services, whatever it may be. But for us as Microsoft, we have the platform of the cloud to give you any option that you have, right? We have hundreds and hundreds of services. So yeah, just give me that future proofing really.
Oh, Sean, just by the way, I don't know if everybody else has seen that, but maybe it's just me down in Tasmania because I'm a long way away. But your writing on the slides just arriving near the 50, 30, 20 just now.
I just came in. Oh, okay. If it delays,
We're a bit out of sync with you.
That's
yeah.
all right. Maybe just Tassie.
Yeah,
I've moved on to the next slide. Hopefully that's changed.
yeah. You can see
cool.
Yeah, the slides are good. Yeah.
Oh, good. I won't write again. But yeah, just to share, AVS, as I said, it's been around for a long time. It's now available in 33 regions across the world. It may not be so relevant to people on the call here, but just to show you the breadth and scale of AVS, it's not just in Australia or US service, it's really everywhere. And even in Australia, we've got Southeast, which is Melbourne, and Sydney, to give you, for potentially a production region in Australia East and a DR in the Southeast. So fully supported.
And Sean, I know there's going to be probably one random customer out there, but is it going to come into New Zealand? It has been a question that I've been posed before. So is it coming to New Zealand?
It will come to New Zealand, most likely in about a year's time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Or maybe less, maybe early if we can. But yeah, there are plans for New Zealand. So New Zealand North, by the way, for those on the call, it's just being launched at the moment. So it's currently under managed access is what we call it, kind of like a pre-launch in a way. But yeah, New Zealand North as a data center or region is launching very soon. And so once that launches, then we can start the cycle to get AVS there as well. Great question. So just before I go into the demo, sorry, I know it's a lot of slides, but last one before I show you it in action and maybe it gives you more insights. But a VMware cloud offering like AVS is not new. So you might have heard of VMC on AWS. It was called VMware Cloud on AWS. Right now, that is kind of being shut down slightly. They haven't fully announced that, but there's been a messy situation there. So VMC on AWS is no longer being sold for new customers. So there's a lot of change happening there. And then there's Google Cloud. They have a VMware offering. Oracle has a VMware offering. So VMware on cloud is not a new concept and it's not unique to Microsoft. What is unique to us, though, is our commercial offering. So all of us have the same fundamental, in each of the hyperscalers, it is hardware with VMware software in our respective clouds. That is fundamentally what it is. But for us, how we're seeing it is from a commercial standpoint is one of the main benefits right now is we're giving customers up to a 5-year reservation. So we've always had 1-year, 3-year reservations, but we now have a 5-year reservation. Which is really us taking a risk or taking a hit ourselves, because in 5 years' time, for sure, the VMware licenses are going to be maybe double or tripled again. Who knows, right? We're not sure what the 5-year roadmap looks like, but we as Microsoft are giving customers a 5-year reservation, meaning you can lock in your VMware pricing for up to 5 years. So that's great from a commercial point of view. But alongside that, we don't lock customers in just to AVS for 5 years. So you may sign up for 1, 3, or 5 years for AVS, get that fixed price, so it will never change during that period. But even during that 5-year period, you can flexibly exchange that reservation for Azure VMs. So as I said before, if you're on that stepping stone, that in the next 3 to 5 years, your actual pathway is into Azure VMs. We'll give you this flexibility plus price guarantee for up to 5 years, and go on from there. On top of that, we have already baked into the pricing today is a 20% discount of the 1-year pricing. So a lot of price savings and price, lock-in, etc. from that perspective. For Windows and SQL customers with the Azure Hybrid benefit, you can have license mobility. So bringing your Windows and SQL licenses into Azure or AVS if you've got AHub. So that really significantly reduces your licensing costs from a guest perspective, as well as we're talking about the hypervisor layer, right? So it's both together. Other hyperscalers don't really mention the Windows and SQL side of things because they don't own it. So they'll give you a sort of a price on the VMware side of things, but then almost ignore the guest side because that's also very important. And then from a security updates perspective, so legacy workloads, so Windows Server 2012 went end of life, SQL Server 2012 and 2014 now. 2014 very recently went at end of life as well. So if you have these workloads and if you bring them onto AVS or onto Azure, you get free security updates. If you leave them on premise or on another cloud, then you have to pay for the security updates, which in the SQL world as well is extremely expensive. So in a way, if you can just bring those onto AVS, it kind of pays for itself in some ways, or at least part of it. So especially for legacy workloads, this is a really good use case. If you have them, bring them onto AVS and get those free updates. We also have additional programs. So from a funding perspective, partners like cubesys who are skilled in this area, we can give them funding to help you with the migration as well. And there are other benefits with some Azure credits as well. So depending on how many nodes or workloads you bring onto AVS, we do have programs to give you Azure credits as well. So overall, as a package, commercially, we're trying to be as attractive as possible. But yeah, the big thing that a lot of customers are very excited about is having that 5-year price guarantee plus flexibility. It's a win-win if you look at it that way.
That's good.
Cool.
Yeah, and we'll add some more details about the Azure Migrate and the Cloud Migration Factory at the end there. We'll tell you a few more details about that. But if you've got maybe if you just pause for a second, because you've got a demo, John, there's lots of information there. And so strong technical background from AVS, right? And that's been there for many years, but now with the commercials available and they can see Microsoft reacting to the Broadcom area, and there's a whole package of capabilities there. Has anybody got any questions about those before we show off in the tech room? No? If you're shy, please feel free to use the chat. It's all good. Good. All right, Sean, I'll keep an eye on chat as you go,
sure.
But I'll continue with the demo in a minute.
No worries. So yeah, just maybe it'll give you a flavor of what it looks like. So in the past, if someone told me 5 years ago, maybe longer, VMware in cloud or VMware in Microsoft, we used to battle, right? We used to compete in the hypervisor space. So to have VMware in cloud on Azure is actually, we've come a long way thanks to Satya as well. But yeah, so if you're not familiar, this is the Azure portal. A lot of customers like you might be on the cloud already, but the Azure portal is our console for everything cloud. AVS is a first-party citizen and first-party service. So when I say first-party, it basically looks and feels like an Azure service. First-party meaning Microsoft looks after the service. It's part of a support agreement. It's if you deploy AVS, you will only ever contact Microsoft for any support or any billing or any commercials. We are that one single point of contact rather than having multiple vendors. Like, one line to Broadcom, one line to a cloud provider, one line to a network provider, nothing like that, right? So all of it is Microsoft. So this is the private cloud. So in the portal, you'll see, a whole bunch of stuff that looks and feels like an Azure service. So, things like even monitoring, like Azure Monitor, everything's baked into, from an AVS perspective, like another Azure service. So things like logging, monitoring, we expose a lot of things and make things look and feel the same way as other Azure services. But yeah, this is AVS. You get to see the clusters, adding storage, virtual machines, adding networks, things like adding monitoring, things like that. So there's a lot of things that we give from the portal perspective. But really, at the end of the day, what is AVS? It is VMware running in cloud. So, once I'm in vCenter, so you get access to vCenter. If you operate this today, you'll see that it looks and feels exactly like your VMware environment today on premise. So it's vSphere 7 today. We will be vSphere 8 shortly. But yeah, it looks and feels like every other VMware environment that you may have today. So no changes whatsoever. So I mentioned migration. So customers like yourselves, you might be in this boat where you're looking, okay, this sounds great. I have a need. I need AVS potentially. How do I get my workloads there, right? So I'll just show you a very quick demo. And so, when a customer goes through this journey, and they've decided to go to cloud, decide to migrate, there are two main, requirements that they have. So one is making it as seamless migration as possible. So we'll show you that. And the second thing is keeping the same IP address. So I'll show you that as well. So if you just noticed this before, I just clicked through in the vCenter UI, there is HCX, which is a VMware migration product. So we give you the enterprise version for free. So once that's set up, you simply go to HCX, you click on the migrate button, migrate again, and you can simply pick the VMs you want to migrate. It's that simple. You can also do it through Power CLI, command line options if you wanted to, and automate this if you needed to. But really, it's just as easy just to do a click-through experience. So once you click the migrate button, it contacts your on-prem vCenter, shows you your VMs. So in this example, I'm picking VM1 and VM2. I can pick as many as I want in this batch, up to 200. And then the only things you have to specify is the destination stuff. So on the destination side, which cluster do I want to go to if I had multiple? Which storage do I want to go to? So do I want to go to the built-in vSAN storage? Or we also have the ability to offload the storage to external services like Azure NetApp Files or Elastic-SAN. So we have local storage built into the physical hardware or external storage. You can then pick the migration type. So there's vMotion, there's bulk migration, and there's replicate assisted vMotion, which is what I've just selected. The last one, or this one, is simply meaning bulk vMotion. That VMware put it behind an enterprise feature. So without enterprise, you don't have that. But because we give enterprise for free, you do have that. I'll pause here for a second. So all I've done is selected, replicate assisted vMotion. You can even schedule a cutover. So if you have a maintenance window to say, 5 p.m. on a specific night, for example, do it then, don't do it before. So you can set up that switchover schedule as well. In a previous step, which I haven't not shown here for time purposes, is I've stretched a network. It's very, very simple. You click a button, stretch a network. It's very, very simple. But the wizard, when you're migrating, it detects that there is a stretched network for that specific segment. So my on-prem segment is test VM segment 2, very bad naming. But you'll see on the right-hand side, it's got L2E underscore the name, and L2E signifies layer 2 extended. So this is how, the network itself has been stretched to the cloud. And so if I move my VMs to this network, it keeps the same IP address and contacts the same gateway that you have on premise. You can also change the network using this icon to any other network. So if you want to re-IP it or put it onto an isolated network, for example, you can do that as well. But yeah, it's that simple. You simply, as you saw, just click, select the right options. You can click validate to make sure nothing is wrong or there's no errors. In this case, there's nothing, it's all fine, and I can hit on go. And so at this point, again, nothing is happening to your on-prem workloads. It is simply data being replicated from source A to source B. In this case, B is AVS. And so over your express route connection, if you have one, or VPN, a data transfer happens, right? So again, nothing's happening, no impact in workload on premise. So as long as it needs to take, it will take to migrate, just physics and bandwidth speed. So I'll just skip ahead to where the magic happens. But in this example, basically, I've got a VM in Canada that's moving to Germany across the world. Your case wouldn't be the same, right? It'd be Australia to Australia, most likely. But you can see my on-prem VM was pinging another VM locally, 0.2, 0.1 milliseconds of latency. What's happening now is vMotion is kicked in, it's cut off the VM. That VM has magically now gone, well, thankfully to vMotion, has gone from Canada to Germany. So of course, there's more latency because it's across the world. So you're seeing, from 0.1 to 105. But the main point here is the migration was that seamless. There was no ping drops. There was no IP change. It was seamless as ever. The VM probably doesn't even know anything happened, right? It's just flicked over like vMotion from A to B, and that's happened. So it's just a very quick demo to show you how simple it is to migrate. Nothing changes. You see from management of VMs in the portal as vCenter looks the same. You have the full, whatever you want to do with the VM, you can. So yeah, again, everything looks and feels the same, and easy migration.
So everything's in the preparation, and Sean, really, it's like once you've got your environment set up and your network stretched and you're ready to go.
Exactly.
Right? Actual migrations are like we just spot seconds, right? And
that's right. That's right. Yeah,
Obviously
super
for
simple.
business
So it's just,
continuity and things like that is all okay. And then of course the on-prem stuff's untouched. It's just switched off as you do the vMotion, right? So
yeah. So the VM in the vMotion sense actually disappears from your on-prem vCenter.
yeah.
There is bulk migration, which is the other option, which creates a copy. So at the time of cutover, the on-prem one is shut down and the AVS VM is powered on. So there is a reboot time or power on time. That's the only downtime you have. But if you absolutely don't want
Thinking
any
about some of
downtime whatsoever,
our enterprise clients, we've changed control requirements. That rollback scenario then is super
yes,
right, as well,
that's
right?
exactly that. Exactly that.
Delta in time is quite small as well, right?
Very small. It's just the
very
power
low
on time.
risk. Yeah.
Just the power on time. If something's broken or doesn't work, something just ignore that and just power on your source on-prem side, and you're back to normal. So it's very easy.
So technically, you can see why this has been attractive for a lot of clients that want to get out of a data center quickly or haven't really got, because cloud migrations are not straightforward. There's a lot of planning and a lot of to get to the native live platforms, which we do for a lot of our clients, and there's always something that trips you up, and it takes a bit of time and effort. Whereas this is like for like, so just move, and then we can worry about how we go native over the next 1, 3, 5 years.
Exactly. And again, as I said before, maybe most of it might go native eventually, but there could be some workloads that have to be on VMware, or some workloads that have to maintain the same IP, or some workloads have to, for whatever reason, have to stay on this AVS platform. They can stay there, and the rest can be on Azure native VMs or PaaS services, whatever they may be, right? So it's flexibility into whatever platform or service you're looking for. If you can switch back to slide 4, if you don't mind, I'll just touch on the quick TCO.
I got there. And I need to reshare that, do I?
Yes.
Just 1 second. Yeah.
Cool. Hopefully that gave you a bit of a look into what AVS looks like. I'll just touch on TCO, which is always going to be a question, when you go down this road.
Yeah.
So how you save money, or how does AVS really save you money? It is really 2 things. So one, of course, the license is provided with Microsoft, but of course we have to pay the license itself. So each hardware that I said, when you purchase the hardware or deploy those physical nodes, they come with a license, or you bring your own. So here's a customer example that I did for a customer in India, actually. But so this customer on premise had about 200 physical hosts, spread across multiple locations, about 1,600 VMs, 6,000 vCPUs, et cetera, et cetera. You can see that on the screen. In an on-prem world, a lot of customers have a lot of hardware. Maybe they've collected them over time. There's extra hardware for capacity, for disaster recovery, for scalability, for time of year, whatever reason. So you have extra hardware in on-premise generally. It's always the case. Because if you have to buy hardware and you needed that tomorrow, you can't get new hardware just in a flick of, in a matter of seconds, right? So you have to have extra capacity on premise. Today, what that means, though, is if you have too much extra capacity on premise, you have to license each of those physical cores at that new VCF price, right? So in this case, 5,800 physical cores, they have to pay $350 retail price. So 5,800 times 350 per physical core, that's your license cost per year. So it's a huge cost if you just have a lot of extra hardware. When we do sizing for customers, we do these assessments. We'll talk about that very shortly. But if you do an assessment, we figure out from a compute perspective how many AVS nodes you would need. So because our AVS nodes have a lot of compute, they have a lot of storage, they have CPU, you may not need as many physical hosts that you have on premise. So in this case, the customer only needed 46 AVS nodes. So the main point here is, in any case, no matter where, even if you're saving 5 or 6 physical hosts, regardless, you're saving on the licensing cost. In the cloud world in general, and AVS is no different, you will only ever deploy what you need at the time from a compute perspective, because you can always add physical nodes anytime. So if you want another physical node tomorrow in the next half an hour, you click a button, we give you a new physical node added to your cluster. So scalability and whenever you need is always there. So how does this work out commercially?
Is that true for DR as well? So if we were across region and we have a problem and we want to go to that other region, it's just there for us, right? And Like, how does that work commercially? Is that
Yes, good question. So in let's say you've got, I don't know, 10 nodes in production in Sydney, and that's your running state, and you need 10 nodes for compute and memory and storage. In DR, there are various options. You can have no nodes running at all in South, which is not costing anything, but your recovery time will be longer because we have to deploy the physical hardware at the time you need it. So what we recommend to customers is have at least 3 nodes of AVS running in DR, because to scale up from 3 to 5 or 10 or 20, it takes 30 minutes. So the scale up time or recovery time from 3 to whatever you need is short, but from 0 to 3 is 4 or 5 hours. So that's the
preparing
difference.
that private cloud inside of Azure for that client, right? It's just
That's
getting
right.
it ready. Right, yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Makes sense.
And even from a recovery point, you need software that will do the orchestration for you, the storage to be present very, very quickly. So usually customers have at least 3 nodes minimum running in a DR location. And at the time of DR, you go from 3 to 10 or 20, whatever you need. So your cost of DR is low most of the year, and you only pay for the extra nodes at the time of recovery.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, great question. So TCO wise, so if those 200 physical servers, each in an on-prem world, this is looking at 5-year cost. On-prem world, you'll have server costs, you'll have storage costs, you'll have networking costs, which is your firewalls, licenses, switches, whatever else. It's just we just take an average like a 5% of that compute and storage, as an example. And then your license cost, this was the big one for this customer. It was going to be about 8 million for 5 years for this 200 physical hosts. So a lot of just license cost. You'll have your data center cost.
Is that with the change? Is that with the changes happening? So
that's with the changes. Yeah. That's with the $350 per core per year. Even if you are, a large customer and you got a 50% discount, that's still 4 million, just from a licensing cost. Then you got your data center costs, your labor costs, security updates for legacy workloads, as I mentioned before. So there's a cost there as well. AVS, you'll see the compute is higher, because from our side, the compute includes storage. So storage is part of the physical nodes. So you have a 10 million cost there, but the storage is included, the license is included, the data center, of course, is included, the ESU is included. So overall, there's a huge significant cost saving. Even if you were to, even half this, if the assumptions are too high, even half it, we're still, lower, right? So the main point here is in the cloud, you'll pay for or deploy what you need at the time. You'll definitely see, especially if you've got a lot of physical hosts, a lot of physical cores you have to license, you'll see cost savings. But yeah, we can definitely, with any customer, do an assessment and figure out what that sweet spot is, or what the number of nodes you might need.
I suppose when you add that flexibility you've talked about, so pick 1, 3, 5 year of reserved instances, get your lower price point, but then you're saying I can move that to other Azure services effectively, right? And
exactly.
Use.
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay. Compared to like Broadcom's VMware deal, where you're a bit sort of locked in at that higher price, and there's not a lot of flexibility there, right? And
so what they're doing is they're forcing a lot of customers to go with a 3-year renewal, and not giving 1-year renewals, because they want that guarantee for customers for that 3-year period, right? So they want 3 years, but even at 3 years, at the 3rd year, what's the price going to be then? Would it double again or triple again in 3 years' time? We don't know, right? So we see a lot of customers forcing or pushing for a 1-year renewal if they have no time, as in, they've waited, Broadcom waited till the last second to give you the quote, and then you have no choice in a way. So then they try and do a 1-year renewal, and then during this 1 year, we try and show them an AVS path and a cloud path, essentially. But yeah, if you've not done the renewal yet and you have time, then AVS can be a great option if you're looking for that feature.
Really, it must be really interesting commercially to look at the maths of that, because the only reason I can think of to stay on-prem is that you've already bought and got commitments on an on-prem data center, right? And
yes,
but like with those numbers, you could almost, like, if you could almost suck that up in some ways and just move anyway, right? Because it's right. So significant.
Yeah. All move bits and pieces, right? So you don't have to do a full DC exit. You move the ones that maybe some hardware is coming end of life sooner than later. focus on those first.
Minimize your on-prem licensing commitment.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
And a really good strong point around that ESU piece as well, right? You know, a lot of stepping stones needed to get past your 2012, 2014 upgrade path, right, to 2022, for example. So that ESU cost right there, also a huge benefit of AVS as well.
Exactly. Cool. So just final slide again. What is just a quick snapshot? What is AVS again, right? So from a migration perspective, it's as is, very, very simple. You don't have to refactor anything. As you saw, the migration is as easy as click next, and it's gone. And cubesys, our expert partners like cubesys can help you with that migration, whenever you're ready. What do you get with AVS? It's the same software. The licenses are included, or you can bring your own licenses. As I said, we've announced that recently. But yeah, if you didn't have VCF today, we will give you VCF and give you vSphere, vSAN, NSXT, and HCX as part of that bundle with the hardware. But yeah, it's a fully first-party service. Bring your own licenses or license provided. You saw the portal. It's all managed through Azure, the Azure portal. Adding capacity is in under 30 minutes. So anytime you need additional capacity or compute, click a button, you get more compute. It's that simple.
Bit different to those. I remember the days. Maybe I'm showing my age, but writing the bill of materials, a good old bomb, and then getting it out for quotes, and then getting it back. 3 months, right?
Exactly.
I remember running my VMware data centers, and always keep we always had an N+1 sound, but I used to sneakily keep an N+2 because I couldn't respond to the business quick enough, right?
Exactly that. Yeah. But that N+2 now costs you a bit too much now. So that's the thing.
Yeah.
So we as Microsoft, we have an offer where we can give you a 3-node cluster essentially for free for 30 days. And so cubesys can help you with an assessment, a POC. Try it out before you buy. Don't believe what I've said. If you have a use case that you're looking that you're worried about may or may not work, by all means, reach out to us. We can help get you this 3-node private cloud. Try it. If you like it, keep it. If you don't like it, get rid of it and destroy it. So it's totally flexible, no commitment. But yeah, it's more that try before you buy scenario. I think maybe you want to cover this, Paul, or I can do this. But yeah, we have assessments that we can run in various ways. But one of them, the native Microsoft ways is there's a Azure Migrate appliance or assessment that we can do. So Azure Migrate, if you haven't used it before, can assess a migration to native cloud, but it can also do an assessment to AVS, or both at the same time, essentially. So giving you a price for what a native migration looks like and giving you a price what via AVS, how many physical nodes you might need. So if you're interested, we can definitely do this assessment. I think the slide has and I keep Paul if you want to touch on this a little bit.
Sorry, maybe your slides.
I think we're having some problems with the slides. The slides are a little bit. You're a little bit further ahead of what the slides are showing. But yes,
the assessment piece is okay. Interesting. Team is just struggling with the update. We can keep talking. So as Sean was telling there are different assessment options. Now, in some of those assessments, we can depending on your situation, we can actually get Microsoft to do that for us, right? Or we can do it for you, right? So either way, same tech, right? That happens there. I think if slides are catching up, it might be worth us pointing out that we are a specialist partner. For those of you who don't know what specialization is in the Microsoft partner world now, is not only do we have to be a solutions partner, which is that white bit at the top. If we are recognized as a specialist, as we are in these database or data center migrations and in AVD, we can go and ask Microsoft for funding to help you do that, right? And what that means is they come in and audit us every year to make sure that we are up to scratch and follow the best practices for Microsoft, right? So they assess our paperwork and how we run projects, but also our engineers and what knowledge they have and things, right? So it's for an assessment. So because we've got that specialization, we can also help you do the migration and request funding. Additionally, we're also, I think Sean mentioned this in the middle of the presentation deck there, cubesys are approved for the Azure Migration Factory, what that means in brief description is that we can get some additional free resources from Microsoft to help us with the project. So if you've got a large project you need to move, we can help, again, control the costs on the professional services to move across, right? So there's lots and lots of different options available to us, and I would encourage you to reach out and talk to us, right? Talk to myself or Chris, and we can explain how all the AVS piece works and where we go from there. Now, I'll pause there for a second and see if there's any questions from the room. And again, please use chat if you're shy, or speak up, but come off mute. I'm more than happy to hear you. If not, I've got a couple of questions to summarise with and make use of Sean's knowledge. It's great to have a Microsoft black belt in the room. Anybody got a question in response? Well, sort of semi-technical operational one for you, Sean, while we're waiting if people are typing. I was interested in, so how do Microsoft manage the vSphere upgrades and updates, right? And how does that interact with clients, right? What's the goal there? Because obviously that's quite important for operations, right?
Yeah, so we see a lot of customers, especially in Asia, maybe not in Australia, but patching and upgrades, some people forget about it or leave it and ignore it, and they're usually on outdated versions. So in the AVS world, that won't happen. So we as Microsoft look after patching, even upgrades like vSphere 7 to vSphere 8 for all customers globally. And all of that happens seamlessly. So essentially it's all huge machines behind the scenes. And we essentially release a patch. We have spare nodes in every data center. So we will introduce a patched version into your private cloud. Remove one, so you're not missing one. So it's always going to be as the same number as what you have today. But essentially, introduce a patched one, remove an existing one, patch the one that we removed, bring it back, and repeat the cycle. And this entire thing is seamless because at the time of removing or adding the node, we'll put something in maintenance mode, so the VM's vMotion across another machine or another physical host. So all that is completely seamless.
Basically, you're doing what we would do on-prem, but you're doing it for us, right? And keeping
doing it for you, doing it in an automated and real strict manner with zero loss and zero downtime. Yeah,
that's great. I mean, obviously, keeping things evergreen is hard work, and that's one of the big benefits of cloud, right?
That's right.
Good to know. Couple more questions for you. What should we do if we've already renewed that license agreement? Because we've been talking about how great it is commercially to move across and significant difference in pricing. But let's say if we've already signed or just signed and we've got a year or 2 more years in, what do we do? How do we leverage some of the benefits of AVS?
Yeah, I think if what we've spoken to today makes sense, or at least it sounds interesting, anyone listening might want to do an assessment of some sort, right? So either what the VMware spend is today and you're happy with it, but maybe with the VCF license that you have, so VCF is the key. You can't bring other licenses to the cloud or anywhere else. It has to be the VCF license. That's the only one that Broadcom allow portability. So if you have VCF and one of the use cases sound interesting, even from a scalability or disaster recovery, you can bring those licenses to AVS. We'll just give you the hardware with all the bells and whistles we just mentioned, and use the license, right? So you have a dual data center now. So you have some in the cloud, some on premise. The license is portable. But
so if that's the AVS solution for Microsoft is a different price point when you bring your license.
Exactly. Yeah. So we won't charge you the license portion. We'll just give you the hardware. But if you have signed the license renewal, but you're unhappy about it, you were just forced into it, and you may have a year or two to decide, that's good time. I mean, we see customers moving in 3 months or less, right? So if you have a year, that's a good amount of time. So definitely reach out to Paul, reach out to us, reach out to me for looking at an assessment to see. Let's assess your environment, see how it stacks up commercially. Either go straight to AVS if you're happy with that, or go straight to native if you're happy with that, or mix of both. Right? It can be one and the other, or one or both together. So doing the assessment will be interesting, at least from a TCO perspective, business case perspective, to see what makes sense. And especially if you've got like a year or so, that's a good amount of time to really make that decision and make the right decision.
I think thinking about that, the technical, what you've shown us today, and that the technical barriers to adopting AVS pretty low, right? And
Yes.
I'm sure we can move quickly on that. Is making sure you're getting the rest of the commercials set up, and you get the business case together, and you can, make a sensible decision. That's probably more that 3 months. The technical bit we could probably do quite quickly, though.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, you can set up HCX in a day and then start migrating tomorrow. So it's
and I was just about to ask that question, right? Because obviously the TCO and the business case make a really good point. But what's your Sean, from your experience? I guess obviously I've got my own, but from your experience, what's the average ramp up time for the first set of migration? Is it really that 3 month marker, or are you seeing a lot of customers achieve that a lot quicker?
Yeah, it depends on the customer, right? So if you're a large enterprise with a lot of red tape, even getting a firewall port open can take up to a month, right? So
yeah. I don't know what you mean, Sean. I've never seen that with our clients.
So that's really the roadblock. Technically wise, when we do even like we do these hacks internally, I'll set up a private cloud in a day, right? And do migrations from one country to another country. So it can all happen in literally 1 or 2 days if you wanted to. It's really how quickly can the teams mobilize to get something moving. But
maybe a good
I'd
point,
say,
depending on how aggressive you want to be there.
That's right.
If you want to prove a concept, we can do that so quick, right? And
exactly.
and if you've got a 30-day trial, we can really achieve that in that time frame, right?
Absolutely, yeah. So that 3-day trial, 30-day trial, we'd like to think of it as a sort of pre-production pilot in a way. So it's we're giving you free nodes, you try it out, set up the networking, do your test cases, things like that. But then on the 31st day and onwards, that's when we're doing full migrations. Especially if you've got some pending renewal time or hardware end of life time, whatever it is.
What we're talking about is that red tape is network and it's cyber, right? And getting
exactly.
cyber, and we get them happy and we get them connected, and then we
And HCX makes a really simple approach to extending that layer 2 environment to make the networking almost disappear from being a blocker in that instance. Yeah,
exactly.
That's great. Okay, a lot of thank yous in the chat, but no, you must have done a good job, Sean, of explaining all that. There's not any questions on the crowd, which is good. That was very informative. Thank you for your time, and thank you everybody for your time. I will point out again, please get in touch. We're here to help. As you can see through the whole of the webinar, there's lots and lots of ways we can leverage things commercially and in the transition, right? So cubesys and Microsoft can help you get there. So I'll just wrap up and say thank you.
Great, thanks everyone.
Right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah. Bye-bye.